friends, guess what we're talking today? Pest management. That is one of the things which is a little bit of an icky topic, but it's really, really important for your gardening practices, especially as an organic gardener, to make sure that you know what kind of bugs you will have in your garden, that you know how to identify them and how to get rid of them in the end as well. So we'll focus today on 3 bugs which I've already seen in my garden. The very, very annoying squash bug on all my squashes here. Then also the tomato hornworm, where I have a very funny story about. And then last but not least, the cucumber beetle. So all of them are nuisance and can like damage your plants and really be the downfall of that different crop in the garden. So we want to make sure we'll know what we can do about it. So let's just talk pest management in general first. So I'm an organic gardener. I don't spray anything. Yes, I said it. I don't spray anything. Last year, the only thing which I've used once or twice was BT, the Bacillus thuringiensis. I always pronounce it wrong, but BT is a bacillus which get rid of caterpillars. That's literally the only thing I used last year and this season. And this year, knock on wood, so far I haven't used that one either. So I have these days in, let's just say, in ecosystem which balance itself out. It takes some bravery here and there to let some bad bugs lay around or sit around like aphids to make sure that the good bugs are showing up. But it worked out beautifully well. I have birds which take care of a lot of bugs. I had a lot of aphids early spring, to the point that I wasn't sure if I'm brave enough to just let them be. I squished a few and got rid of a few with some water spraying, but otherwise I let them be. And now if you look closer in my garden, you see ladybugs everywhere and some other beneficial insects. So nature typically balances itself out. It sounds crazy, I know. Every company who sells bug stuff, of course, wants to tell you to spray something, but I tell you, sometimes just letting it sit there for a little while and letting nature take care of will do its thing either. For the bugs which we talk today, my main treatment plan is manual removal, and I'll show you the easiest way I do it. Maybe an unconventional way, but it works so well with most of the bugs. You just got to be fast. At least when the bugs are alive. Eggs are very, very easy to take care of this way too. The other thing is also to be able to identify the bugs which you have in the garden. So I started this last year to be a little bit more aware that not every bug which shows up in your garden is actually a bad bug. So before I like flicked it away or squished it away, I made sure that I identified it first, and lo and behold, a bunch of them which I would have flicked away the year before were actually beneficials. So one thing I can recommend is download on your phone the app which is called Picture Insect. This app is amazing. You take a picture, or you can take the picture live in the app with the bug on it, and it scans it and gives you the recommendation. Like in 90% of the cases, it works for me beautifully well. For the teeny tiny bugs, sometimes it has some trouble, so try to take a good picture, zoom in, and then feed it through the app. That is usually the way how I do it, but this app is amazing. If you want to help some friends on Instagram who post a picture of like, oh, anybody knows what that is, what just showed up in my garden, take a screenshot, run it through the app, and send them back the description. The app is also free. Of course, it tries to make you pay for it. I do pay for it because I love it so much and I use it so often, so I want to support them. But you can cancel out the free, the paid option, and it still works, I think, up to like 3 pictures a day or so. So that is really, really a helpful tool, and I'll link the app below. It's really my most used app next to the Picture This, which works for plants. Anytime I travel around and see some plants I can't identify in a different region, I snap a picture over there and help that to identify as well. So that's really, really cool. Yeah, so key to prevention is number one, identification, which we just talked about, and then how to treat them. As I mentioned, I use manual removal. That is my treatment. I do one of two things, or sometimes like a combo out of two, but I use duct tape. I'll roll it off. Duct tape is for me the most sticky tape I have in my arsenal. Here, like, think of any kind of tape which is really, really, really sticky. Um, I just wrap it around two fingers and then I go around and see how I remove it. I'll show you with these squash egg bugs how beautiful that works. Works like magic. And then the other thing, what I use is a soapy water, just jar, like a mason jar or something, where I have an Dawn solution in it. So that I use for like live bugs, which I just like shake from the plant into the soapy water. This works extremely well as well. And sometimes I have like a two thing, I have the duct tape on one hand and then the soapy water on the other hand. I had a few bugs on my plants, on my snapdragons, like harlequin bugs or so, and they were always dramatic and were falling off the plant. So I was always like holding a glass underneath while I was trying to tape them off the plant. And yeah, that combo worked very well as well, I can tell you. So especially for organic purposes, I really do not like to spray anything in the garden, and again, have fared well so far. Let's talk about the squash bug. I'll have here a picture so you know what we're talking about. And as the name says, it loves squash. I personally find the squash bug a lot easier to deal with than the evil, vicious squash vine borer, which I'm not capturing here because this year I'm only growing plants or squash varieties which are resistant to the squash vine borer, because that one I tried to battle over the last few years and always lost in battles. So this year I'm growing only varieties which are completely squash vine borer resistant, which means the stems aren't hollow. And for that reason, I'm only battling the squash bug this year. So what is always important to understand when you deal with a pest is to know its life cycle a little bit, because that helps to know how quickly you need to act, how much time you have in between to really get it under control. And with most pests, it's really important to find them early, because once they are starting to hatch and to multiply, you lose the battle pretty quick. So early detection and early treatment is really, really important. As you can see here, I grow my squash on an arch in a vertical setting, which I would always recommend. It's so much easier to prevent here pests and really to identify the pests, because you can actually look under the leaves. This is where the eggs typically hide, on the bottom of the leaves, somewhere along the veins, which makes it so much easier to detect them and really get rid of them. So for the life cycle, it is the adult, it lays eggs, it turns into a nymph, and then it turns into the adult. And for the eggs, it takes about 10 days for them to hatch into nymphs. And then the nymphs, I think, were 4 to 6 weeks until they turn into adults. And let me tell you, from the moment they hatched, the nymphs as well as the adults are really, really hard to kill. They are really, really, like, you can like stomp on them like 3 times and they're still running type of bugs. So the best chance you have with them is to get rid of them via eggs. As I mentioned, you have basically 10 days to find them before they get turn into a bigger problem. And the most important thing is just to finding those eggs, and they are always on the underside of the leaves, which I will show you. So with the squash bugs, what you need to stay on top of it is the eggs. And typically they lay under the leaf, but sometimes you find them even on top of it. So I have here a very, very dense population of squash. So they're just going a little bit wild here. So it's really important to stay on top of the leaves, on top of the eggs on the leaves, because typically where you find some, around you find more. Like here, we have some on the underside. That is typically where they are at, close to the veins and on the other side. And there were more, right? So it's not only just one spot on the leaves. Make sure you check the leaves from all sides. And so we have some here, some here. Check this one. No. What is easy when you have them a little bit elevated is to just hunch down and try to look from the bottom up, because this is how you can find most of them. Oh, there are more, right? Makes it a lot easier than crawling over the ground. Oh, and there are also more. So once I have identified the eggs, I take duct tape to get rid of them. Yes, duct tape. It's perfect. Let me show you. So it's just some ordinary tape here. Literally just, I find duct tape works the best, or like the heavy duty shipping tape, because the adhesive is just really, really strong. That is what you want. You want to have it, you want to have the stickiest tape possible. And I literally just leave it here and have it ready at hand when I need it. Take a piece, put it somewhere. And then I usually just loop it around and start like taping them off. So like here, there you go. And then I just go around like that. Take the other ones here. There you go. Keep moving around. If you're a squamish, you can just wear gloves. That's what I did. I'm on gardener level 3rd year, so I'm not necessarily using gloves anymore, except for squishing bugs that I can't still do with my hands. Like here, some more. There we go. It works really, really well, as you can tell. So let's talk a little bit about the tomato hornworm. Fun fact, when I started gardening and started growing tomatoes, I wanted to be proactive and was looking up tomato pests, and came around the picture of a tomato hornworm and was so terrified by this alien looking worm that I literally had nightmares a few nights after I looked it up. In my first season, in my first tomato season, I didn't have any of them coming around, and then my second tomato season, I had one which was like that big of a size, and once I found it, um, they are very, very well um, like hidden on the plants, because they have practically the same color as the tomatoes. And I was looking for it, and was basically looking eye to eye with it later. And I don't know how high I jumped, but I'm very sure that I literally jumped a foot high when I saw it, and like jumped back and was like so terrified by it, because it was literally like big like my finger. And FaceTimed Mr. Grown in New England in his office to report immediately for terrified bug removal, and he was thinking I was dramatic until he came out and looked at it, and he was like, holy freaking moly, I'm not gonna touch that either. So we ended up actually cutting the branch out of it and like drowning it in a bucket, and it was a whole story. We still love about it, but long story short is it's always easier to get them early when they're teeny tiny and not very big. Number one, they're not as intimidating. Number two, they haven't done any damage, because what they do is you would be surprised how quick they chomp down portions of your tomatoes. It's wild. What the tomato hornworm is, it's basically the larva of a moth, which is a night moth, which you typically don't see at daylight. So, but it's yeah, it's very hungry when it's there. You most likely will find it, or you will recognize most likely damage on the leaves. So like leaves chomping off, like literally like eaten away. And what you most likely find as well, once they are sizable, they have some very, that sounds funny, but it's true, very significant or very easily identifiable poop. It looks like, I'll put a picture here that's easier and I'll try to explain it, but it's very, very specific, which you will find the droppings on the tomatoes or like close by. So you know you got to find them somewhere. But again, it's a lot easier to identify them when they are small. So I actually found my first one just a couple days ago, and I have a picture here on how that one looked. And you know now also why it's called tomato hornworm, because it truly does have a little horn. And it's really a lot easier to find them. The eggs, other they are a little bit different than, like, for example, a squash bug, which comes in a lot of clusters and will have a lot of them turning into nymphs. Tomato hornworm is just typically single eggs around it. And the good news with the tomato hornworm is they don't show up in masses typically. So you have typically, like last year, I was very vigilant and found them all small. And I think I found like 6 or 7 early in the season. So they don't show up in large numbers, but when they show up, they can still do a lot of damage. So I prefer them to get them early, as I mentioned. There are ways to find them. The eggs are not super small, but also not super big. I have a picture here of one which I found just a couple of days ago. They're like white and milky, and look a little bit glossy. So that you will find them and will be wondering what that is. And I actually just found one here, um, funnily on the trellis and not on the tomato, but I'll show you in a second. Looking at it closely is the best you can do. Looking for any type of damage in the leaves. For me, unfortunately, I have always like some damaged leaves, like from wind, because we have a lot of high winds in the summer here. So, but otherwise, like any type of eaten damage on the leaves is for me the early indicator that I usually find there in tomato hornworm. And then I remove them. A few folks really swear by going with black light at night around to find them. I'll try that. Didn't have any luck, and I'll just get eaten alive if I go outside at night with black light here. So that is nothing what I do. But there are many, many options. If you don't find a hornworm and the hornworm gets to full size, oftentimes nature takes also care of that, which is even more gross than the hornworm itself, because the parasitic wasp lays egg on it, and you might have seen pictures of that as well. So it basically, it's so gross, but they lay egg on it, and they hatch and basically eat that inside and out, from the inside out. It's a whole thing. It's gross, but that is how they get rid of it, how nature get rid of them, and is in like vehicle for other beneficials. So I personally don't like to let it come to this, because until the hornworm is of that large size, they could have taken down half of my tomato plants here, because they are really, really hungry and do a lot of damage. So for that reason, look out for them. And let me actually show you that egg. Do you see that little spot here? Like this one here? This is, I think, a hornworm egg. That is exactly how it looks. It's like one single egg. Usually it sits on a leaf and looks like milky white-ish. So I will tape that one off as well. And here, yep, I'm pretty sure that was one. And you see here it sticks very, very well on the duct tape too. Let's talk a little bit about the striped cucumber beetle. I gotta say, this is one bug which I have yet to conquer, because those suckers are fast. They are also problematic because they transfer what is called bacterial wilt. So once a cucumber plant is infected with that, it wilts away, and there is no option to save it anymore. And it's really annoying. I would say, like, the cucumber beetles have taken down most of my cucumbers eventually, in the previous years. So I haven't really found a good way of really managing them, except again, like taping them away, or putting them into a soapy water bucket as well. They are really, really fast. So that's what makes them hard. But sometimes they are attracted by yellow, like a lot of bugs are attracted by yellow. So they are always around the cucumber flowers or the squash flowers. Here I have squash and cucumbers together, so this is where I can find them and then just shake the flowers out into a soapy water bucket. This helps. Um, but they can really also defoliate complete plants because they chomp down the leaves. It's really a sad thing to see. Yeah, live and learn, right? Try to get rid of them. Again, I don't like to spray it. What's their life cycle? And that is what makes it hard to take care of them is, so they lay egg on soil level and then the larvae sits in the ground for a while and eats on the roots as well. So sometimes if you see plants, cucumber plants wilt off and no physical bugs around, there is a good chance that there is the larvae in the ground, in the soil, chomping on those. So this year, I haven't seen that many. I got a few already, so we'll see how that goes. But again, they're most likely right now invisible because they're chomping in the roots. So we'll see in a couple of weeks if they're still in small numbers around. Again, like you can only do so much. So sometimes be as vigilant as you can is the best thing you can do. Again, I'm not spraying anything in my garden because I have way too many pollinators around and I don't like to risk those pollinators. So yeah, let me see, or I have here an example of a leaf which was affected and wilted away by them. Let me show you this. So this is a great example of a leaf which got like eaten up. You see all those holes in it. That is typically what they do to cucumber leaves. And if we like look a little bit further, we probably find, nah, yeah, let's just take that. But it's a great example of the damage they do, and that leaf will wilt away eventually, even if it doesn't have necessarily that bacterial wilt yet. It just weakens the plant and yeah, makes it more susceptible to other pests as well. So what is really important with pest management is to stay on top of it, catch them early, and get rid of them early, as good as you can. That will save you a lot of headache in the long run. Because just think of it, every problem exponentially increase because they just multiply so fast. So the earlier, the better when it comes to pest management. So I hope this video was helpful to you. I know something what is really important to understand is not every bugs are the same in every garden, right? So I'm here in Attleboro in a zone 6. For that reason, my bugs look very different from anything what you maybe find at the West Coast, somewhere south, somewhere more north, right? So take this with a grain of salt. I'm also not a professional pest management person, right? I just speak here of experience. So make your own experience. Let me know how you treat your pests in your garden. Always love to hear what other people do, but I'll encourage you truly to really take less chemicals and more manual removal as the main strategy in your garden, especially if you're an organic gardener around, or grow things which you want to feed to your family just for, yeah, safety purposes and peace of mind, right? So yeah, I hope this video was helpful to you. I also make sure that I have all the resources below in the captions so that you can dig a little bit deeper if you're curious. And let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Otherwise, subscribe and watch another video. Thank you.